Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Navistar's Vice President, Advanced Engineering, Darren Gosbee.
Good afternoon, welcome to the show and welcome to the International Truck booth. I'm going to spend probably about 15 minutes just giving you an insight into really what the world is going to look like from a driver's perspective in the coming years. So, I mean, if you can imagine that our industry today is at a very exciting point in time. We've got lots of challenges, lots of opportunities, there's lots of disruptors out there, the Ubers of the world, the Teslas of the world, bringing technology into an area in passenger cars and in commercial trucks where it doesn't fit the normal pattern. It's not part of the normal cycle. It's causing the whole industry and the whole of society, frankly, to undergo a paradigm shift. So how is this going to impact commercial trucks and our industry as we move forward? It's very exciting times. I'm going to explore three themes and then kind of mash them together at the end and kind of give you a view of how the future could be. I'll ask some questions along the way and maybe leave you with some thoughts, maybe even challenge you to think of some different ideas of what your vision of the future could be. So we're going to explore electrification, we're going to explore emissions, and I'm going to explore autonomy. And I'll talk really about how those topics stand alone, but then how they can all come together for a different future for us all. So what is 2030 going to look like? Is it going to be the same as today? Road congestion. Well, I'm sure there will be road congestion, probably not quite like this, but one thing I can absolutely guarantee with the pace of change, the rate of change that we've seen in technology and in the passenger car industry and even in the commercial truck industry, I can guarantee that it will not look the same way it does today. And it probably will blow apart some of the conventional thinking of what the industry could be, based purely on the influence and the impact of the disruptors with this new technology. So let's pick on the first topic. So the impact of electrification. So if you think about how the passenger car industry has been turned upside down by Tesla. And their ideas and really the original thinking or the kind of the ordered thinking of the cost to enter a business or enter a market is extremely capital intensive for the auto industry. But Tesla have done it. They've come in, they've introduced a wide range of products that really reshapes what passenger cars look like and how passenger cars operate. And even the way with which passenger cars fit into society, how you refuel them, what you do with them at night, a whole bunch of different things, all disrupting conventional thinking. If you consider the vehicles around you are tools, and they are designed to do a job, and as anybody will know, there is no one tool that completes every job. You need the right tool for the right job. And the same goes with technology, and electrification is a very good example of that. Passenger car batteries are reasonably small because you're only moving 4 pedestrians and a small tin box. But if you look at the vehicles around here, these vehicles move heavy weights, sometimes long distances. So the battery packs, the concept of the battery packs is going to be considerably bigger. The technology may be the same, but the sheer size and the subsequent cost are going to be very different. So if you can imagine, I mean, over the last 5 to 6 years, I think the cost of batteries has dropped at approximately 15% year over year over year. And probably by 2025, the cost of a battery will be almost on par with the benefits and the cost of diesel. But at this point, as the technology evolves, again, it's finding the right technology to fit in the right application or the right tool to do the right job. So the next topic is autonomous. So again, we hear about autonomous, we hear and see what Uber and other companies are doing in the autonomous domain. We've seen Waymo and the Google car driving around. But how is that going to impact the commercial truck industry and literally the products and the vehicles that you see around here today? Well, if you wind back the definition of autonomy and look at the various levels and stages as defined by SAE and others, you come across some very fundamental technologies that were really designed to assist the driver and make him safer and more productive. So ADAS systems have been around for a long time, and you can think of things like cruise control. That's an ADAS system. It's semi-autonomous in that you don't have to control the accelerator pedal anymore. But if you build those technologies up, and you get to things like predictive cruise control, active cruise control, you get into lane departure systems, and then into collision mitigation and collision avoidance. These sorts of technologies are all the stepping stones that you can find in these products around here, but take us towards autonomy. Another form of autonomy, if you think about platooning, having two vehicles, cruising one behind the other, the second truck following the first one, short distance, connected by a radio signal. That sort of technology is a lot closer than you might think, and the fuel economy benefits from this are huge. The driver still has to be there, but again, it's still a stepping stone towards autonomous operation. The third area is emissions. Now, everybody wants clean air, and there are significant metropolitan areas within Europe and even within North America that are non-attainment. They're unable to attain clean air guidelines as set up by the EPA. So technology and regulation is going to come really to focus the air quality in these localized regions. And these localized regions are only going to grow bigger in size. I mean, human beings by nature are social animals, and the consolidation of urban areas is happening everywhere across the planet. So cities are getting bigger. So as they get bigger, they still require food and distribution and logistics, which I'll come on to in a minute. But obviously, as they get bigger, transportation in the cities themselves will have an emissions impact. So we will see in time cities become cleaner by the adoption or the regulation of low emission or zero emission vehicles. We can see this happening in Europe, and it will certainly happen here at some point. Now, as we think about autonomy, electrification, and emissions, and now mash them all together, I can kind of present to you a vision or a thought for the future of how all these technologies come together and complement one another. So if you think about I'll push my button again. If you think about these megacities, some on the East Coast, some on the West Coast, some in the middle, low emission zones or zero emission zones, we still have to connect them. So there will still be some form of superhighway that will connect these centers of populace. But we have to distribute goods. So we'll still have vehicles moving goods around, moving food, furniture, consumer electronics. So these superhighways can now make use of some of the technology I mentioned earlier, autonomy, or potentially platooning. I mean, we can see here on this image 3 or 4 trucks potentially connected together in a platoon, proceeding down a superhighway. Clean, efficient, high-efficient diesels are really the most effective way to move this sort of goods and transportation around. But what happens when you get to these low-emission and zero-emission zones, these megacities that require much reduced emissions? Well, then we have to start looking at a distribution model that makes full use of the technologies that I've mentioned earlier. So, for example, now you'll have a regional hub that feeds a low-emission zone or a zero-emission zone off of the superhighway. So the super-efficient diesel comes into the regional hub and then distributes product through electric vehicles or hybrid electric vehicles. Again, using the right tool for the job. Zero-emission zones, electric vehicles. Low-emission zones, hybrids. And even the concept of geofencing and specific areas within these zones could enable a hybrid to run on its conventional heat engine in the outer areas of the zone, and then in the more densely populated areas, you can geofence and operate electric only. So again, the right technology for the right task. So regional electric vehicles, what could they possibly look like? Well, the vehicle on the left is an example of what a small last-mile delivery vehicle could look like. And then in the middle, we see a tractor-trailer combination, similar in concept to a couple of the vehicles that you'll see here, but again, electrified to move short distances. So it doesn't require a huge battery, but can operate in a low emission zone, making a delivery. Maybe it's a beverage tractor or it's some other form of Frito-Lay chip type delivery. And then on the far right-hand side, a typical pickup and delivery truck, again, now a hybrid or even an electric vehicle here as proposed, that could operate within a low emission zone, doing deliveries from consumer to consumer or business to business prior to a last mile delivery pickup. So these three vehicles in combination with the superhighway could be the new distribution model for the future. Again, the right tool for the right job. So what does the superhighway vehicle look like? Well, in time, it could look like this. A cabless vehicle, optimized for aerodynamics, able to cruise highly efficient speed load points across the superhighway. No cab, still containing a high efficient diesel engine, moving from one location to another. Now, how does this impact the driver? So I'll take the discussion now back to really what was the beginning of this session, which is, what is the driver's view? Well, if you bring all these technologies together and think about how the vision is achieved, what is the role of the driver, what is the role of the dispatcher, how do the fleet operations work, what does logistics, distribution look like, it's going to change for sure. It's definitely going to change. The role of the driver, he will become more involved in the technology side. He will become more of a technician in the distribution and the distribution and relaying of packages, of food, of parcels. A different world. Think of an aircraft. Most aircraft these days fly on autopilot, but there is still a pilot, there is still a captain. They are there, highly skilled, overseeing the operations of the plane. What we will see in the future, potentially, is a highly skilled operator or driver overseeing the operations of potentially a number of autonomous vehicles moving around the superhighway and even in some of the metropolitan areas. A vision which is possible, 2030, it's realistic. How does it affect this guy? It's going to change. His view from his seat will change. He may not have a steering wheel in front of him. He may have a number of vehicles that he's responsible for that are behind him. His role will change. His view will change. But he will have an active role in the distribution of goods in the future. Something to think about.